Hey guys, tonight you find yourself. You stand beneath the dripping arch of a monastery gate while winter rain threads silver lines through the torchlight. Cold stone presses dampness into the soles of your boots. Mud clings to the leather in thick brown cakes. Beyond the wall, smoke lies low beneath soot-black rafters, mingling with the smell of wet wool, horse breath, old straw, and cabbage pottage simmering somewhere out of sight. A bell sounds in the darkness, deep and slow, and the river below the hill answers with a soft rush through the mist. Medieval travel brochures really oversold this experience. You probably would not last a week out here, especially once you discover that dry socks count as a luxury and privacy is considered suspicious. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while the rain taps against the shutters, leave a comment telling everyone where you are listening from and what the local time is there. It is always pleasant to imagine these stories drifting through bedrooms, kitchens, night shifts, and quiet corners all across the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lower your head beneath the gatehouse beam and step into the monastery courtyard, where the stones shine black with rain and the gutter chains chatter in the wind. A lay brother takes the reins of your tired horse without asking your name. He wears a patched wool cloak over a brown habit, and his hands are red from cold. The horse exhales a cloud into his face. He does not complain. People here are used to accepting insults from animals' weather and abbots with equal patience. A dog with one torn ear appears beside the stable wall and watches you cross the yard. It is narrow as a broom handle and the color of old ash. When you look at it, it looks away. When you continue, it follows. The guest house stands against the southern wall, its oak door swollen by rain. Inside, rushes cover the floor, though they are not fresh. Their sweet scent has long since surrendered to damp boots, spilled ale, and the faint sourness of travellers who have spent too many nights wearing the same tunic. A beeswax candle burns in a shallow iron dish. Its flame bends whenever the wind slips through the shutters. You warm your hands over a brazier while a novice sets down a wooden bowl of pottage, a heel of coarse bread, and a piece of smoked fish so tough it might once have served as roofing material. You eat slowly. The broth carries onion oats and a few shreds of leek. No one can quite agree whether the fish improves the meal or merely gives the jaw something to remember. The novice watches you with open curiosity. He is thin, pale, and ink-stained from thumb to wrist. A leather cord around his neck holds a worn lead pilgrim badge shaped like a scallop shell. He asks nothing aloud, yet his gaze rests on the sealed packet beneath your cloak. You keep one hand near it. The packet is wrapped in waxed cloth and tied with red thread. It has crossed muddy roads, frost-stiff fields, and 2 swollen rivers to reach this hill. Now the packet lies against your ribs, holding the letter that brings you here. The letter comes from Brother Aldwin, keeper of the monastery library, a man you met years ago beside a roadside shrine after his cartwheel broke in spring mud. Some swear that cloth touched to a saint's relic can cure fever and protect travellers. Even now it is hard to tell whether it can repair wagons. You found him a carpenter instead. His message reaches you in late autumn. It contains few words. Come before the year turns, bring patience, tell no one. The final line is less comforting. The old book has begun to speak again. A bell sounds once more beyond the courtyard. The novice crosses himself. The dog beneath your bench gives a soft whine. You look towards the dark passage leading into the cloister. After the meal, the novice brings a fur-lined cloak from a peg. The fur is worn thin at the shoulders, but the warmth is welcome. He lifts the candle and guides you across the yard. Rain beads on the wool. Water runs from the roof in steady streams, splashing into a stone basin green with age. The monastery sleeps lightly around you. Somewhere above, a monk coughs with the dedication of a man hoping to be heard in Rome. You pass beneath the covered cloister. Near the well stands a bundle of thorn twigs tied with blue thread. The novice calls it a charm against restless spirits, then quickly adds that charms are forbidden. The bundle remains where it is. At the far end of the cloister, an iron key turns in a lock. Brother Aldwin steps into the candlelight. He is older than you remember. His beard has gone almost white, and one eye waters constantly from years spent leaning over smoke and ink. His belt carries a ring of keys large enough to suggest either great responsibility or a deep distrust of drawers. He studies your face, then the packet beneath your cloak, then the novice. Go to Compline, he says softly. The novice obeys at once. His candle retreats along the passage until only the rain and the distant murmur of monks remain. Brother Aldwin embraces you briefly. His habit smells of dust beeswax and dried rosemary. Then he turns without ceremony and leads you through a narrow doorway into the scriptorium. Rows of slanted desks stand beneath shuttered windows. Quills rest in horn cups and a half-burned candle gutters beside a page of careful red letters. The room feels full of absent concentration, as if the scribes have left their thoughts behind in the air. You pass shelves of Psalter's saints' lives, herbals, legal rolls, and grain accounts. One herbal recommends powdered boar tooth for chest pain. No one can quite agree whether such cures survive because they work or because parchment is too expensive to waste. Brother Aldwin takes your letter and holds it over the candle flame until the wax softens. He reads it, though he wrote it. Then he burns it. You watch the red thread curl into black. He says the book came from beneath the eastern wall. 3 months ago, masons repair a crack in the old chapter house. Behind a loose stone they find a cavity, dry and narrow, sealed with lime. Inside rests a cedar box bound in greened bronze. The box contains no relic, no saint's bone, no chalice, and no hidden gold. This disappoints the workman. It contains a codex. The book is ancient, older than the abbey, older than the kingdom, perhaps older than the faith in these lands. Brother Aldwin speaks slowly as though each word must cross a dangerous bridge. The script is Latin, but not the Latin of the monastery school. The hand is rounder, older, written by someone trained under rules long forgotten. The pages are made of fine vellum, yet several leaves are dyed purple. Gold letters begin certain passages. Painted faces appear in the margins, not saints or martyrs, but men and women crowned with laurel, wrapped in bright cloth, riding chariots, standing before crowds, lifting cups, at banquets posing beside statues of themselves. You ask why he sends for you. He looks toward a door at the rear of the scriptorium, because the names in the book do not stay the same. The rain seems louder. He explains that the first reader finds the name Marcus Cassianus beneath the image of a handsome young man holding a wax tablet. The second day the name becomes Lucius Varro. A week later a scribe swears it reads Gaius Fabius. Brother Aldwin believes the men are frightened, careless, or both. Then he examines the line himself. It changes while he watches, not quickly, not like flame or water. The letters seem to lean. Strokes fade, others darken. One name becomes another, with the patient calm of ivy covering a wall. You ask whether anyone else knows. The abbot knows there is an old manuscript. He does not know what it does. The cellarer thinks it is a Roman tax register and has lost interest. 2 scribes know enough to avoid this room after sunset. The masons believe they found a cursed gospel and now refuse to work near the eastern wall unless given extra ale. Brother Aldwin opens the rear door. Beyond it a stair descends. You take the candle from the desk. The dog with the torn ear slips into the scriptorium behind you, though no one has opened the outer door. Brother Aldwin stares at it. Is that yours? You say no. The dog decides otherwise and follows you down. The stair turns tightly through the thickness of the wall. Each step is hollowed by feet long gone. Moisture beads on the stone. Your shoulder brushes hanging cobwebs. Iron hooks hold small lamps, but only one is lit. The flame makes the passage breathe in and out. At the bottom stands a door faced with black iron bands. 3 locks secure it. Brother Aldwin chooses keys from his ring. The first lock opens with a dull snap. The second resists. He mutters the name of St. Jerome and pushes harder. The third opens so easily that both of you pause. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether a door that opens too easily is welcoming you or warning you. The chamber beyond is round and low. Its ceiling disappears into shadow. Shelves line the walls, holding broken reliquaries, cracked altar vessels, old manna rolls and chests whose labels have faded beyond use. A stone table stands at the center. On it rests the cedar box. The bronze bindings are shaped like vines. A Roman eagle is stamped into the lid, nearly worn smooth. Brother Aldwin places both hands on the box, but he does not lift it yet. You notice salt scattered in a ring around the table. He sees you looking. For damp, he says, "The chamber is dry." You say nothing. He opens the lid. Inside lies a codex wrapped in linen, the color of old bone. The cloth bears a faint smell of cedar smoke and something sharper like crushed bay leaves. When he folds it back, the book catches the candlelight. Its cover is dark red leather. A round bronze boss marks each corner. At the center is a small painted panel beneath cloudy horn. It shows a crowd looking upward, while one figure stands above them on a marble platform. The figure raises one hand. Every face below turns toward it. The image is simple, but you feel the room narrow around it. Brother Aldwin opens the cover. The first page shines. Gold letters run across purple vellum. Tiny painted columns frame the text. Between them, a procession moves toward a city gate. Merchants carry baskets. Soldiers lift standards. Women in bright stolas ride in litters. Boys hold writing tablets. An old man raises two fingers as if explaining something no one has asked. At the bottom of the page, a single line has been written in darker ink. Fame is a second body. You read it twice. The dog lies down beside your boots and places its nose on its paws. Brother Aldwin turns the page. A painted Roman forum spreads beneath a pale blue sky. You see red roofs, white temples, awnings, statues, and hundreds of tiny figures gathered in groups. Some press close to a man in a bordered toga. Others point toward a woman descending from a litter. A poet stands on a step with a scroll. A vendor sells small clay lamps bearing the face of a charioteer. On a wall, someone has scratched a name again and again. The letters beneath the picture begin to tremble. Not the page, not the candle flame, the letters. You lean closer. The ink gathers itself into words. Look where the crowd is looking. You feel Brother Aldwin's hand tighten around the edge of the table. Then the gold on the page brightens softly at first, like embers beneath ash. The painted forum deepens, the little banners stir. The crowd appears to shift. You hear something faint beneath the rain and the monastery bells. Voices, thousands of them, far away yet growing nearer. A city, murmuring across 12 centuries. You should step back. You know this. Every sensible instinct advises distance prayer and perhaps a locked door with a less cooperative third hinge. Yet you remain where you are, bent over the purple page, breathing cedar and wax, while the ancient crowd turns as one. And among the painted faces a single Roman looks directly at you. The Roman on the painted page does not blink yet. You feel his attention settle upon you with the weight of a hand. Around him the forum stirs beneath the glow of the manuscript, and the distant murmur becomes clearer. Sandaled feet scrape stone. Bronze coins click into palms. Vendors call beneath striped awnings. Somewhere a fountain splashes into a basin, while lawyers raise their voices as if volume alone might improve the law. Brother Aldwin whispers a prayer, though he forgets the ending. The gold border widens, you smell warm dust, olive oil, sweat leather, and baked bread. The cold chamber falls away, and for one slow breath you seem to stand inside the Roman crowd in hushed wonder. You do not move far. The book keeps you near its painted margin as though you are walking along the edge of a dream. A man in a bright white toga passes close enough for you to see the chalk rubbed into its wool. Behind him follows a line of clients, each carefully dressed, each wearing the patient expression of someone hoping to be remembered before breakfast. They gather outside a grand house at dawn. The manuscript shows you the custom Romans call the morning greeting. Men of lesser rank arrive early at the doorway of a wealthier patron. They wait beneath painted walls, exchange rumors, adjust their cloaks, and try not to look hungry. When admitted, they offer respect, loyalty, and public support. In return, the patron may provide food, money, legal help, introductions, or the priceless favor of being seen beside the right person. You recognize the arrangement. It resembles the manor court, the guild supper, and every monastery corridor where a nervous clerk hovers near an important sleeve. The patron appears at last. He is broad, silver-haired, and polished from sandal to eyebrow. He greets each visitor by name when he remembers it. When he does not, a servant murmurs into his ear. Roman influence, you learn, often depends on appearing to know everyone while employing someone else to do the remembering. The clients follow him into the street. Their number matters. A man surrounded by 50 supporters seems powerful, even if half of them are there for the bread allowance. They cross the forum together, a moving display of reputation. Heads turn, rivals count, petitioners approach, shopkeepers bow more deeply than necessary. At a corner stall, a baker sells round loaves stamped with his family mark. His wife keeps the tally on a wax tablet. Nearby, a money changer weighs coins beside a little bronze figure believed to discourage cheating. Some swear that touching the figure before bargaining protects a buyer from false scales. Even now it is hard to tell whether the charm works better than watching the merchant's thumb. The crowd thickens near the basilica. A young politician climbs a low platform. He raises one hand, waits for the noise to soften, and begins speaking. His words are smooth, but his audience watches more than his argument. They notice his companions, his clothes, his posture, and whether respected men nod at the proper moments. Several hired supporters clap first, giving the rest of the crowd permission to agree. No one can quite agree whether the speaker believes everything he says. The listeners do not require certainty. They require confidence. A boy moves through the assembly distributing small tokens marked with the politician's initials. Another scratches the same initials onto a plaster wall. Across the square, an opponent's servant quietly adds an unflattering nose to one of the painted notices. Fame in this city does not travel by magic. It travels through breakfast visits, whispered favors, public appearances, repeated names, and the steady labor of people who benefit from repeating them. The image shifts towards the market. Their influence becomes practical. A respected matron pauses beside a perfume seller, and every nearby customer notices which jar she chooses. The merchant lifts it higher after she leaves. By noon he claims the scent is preferred by noble households. By evening he has raised the price. A charioteer walks past wearing a blue cloak. Children follow him. A potter displays cups painted in the colours of his racing faction. A tavern keeper hangs a crude portrait above the door. The likeness is poor, but the name is large, which seems to satisfy everyone. You begin to understand why Brother Aldwin calls these people the first influencers. They do not hold glass screens or speak into invisible networks. They move through streets where reputation clings to bodies, clothing, gestures, and crowds. Their followers are visible. Their approval is performed in public. Their rivalries are painted on walls, sung in taverns, repeated at baths, and carried along roads by merchants who remember a good story more faithfully than a correct one. The Roman who first looked toward you now crosses the forum. His name changes in the caption beneath him, but his role remains clear. He is neither emperor nor general. He is a skilled arranger of attention. He introduces one man to a magistrate, praises another beside a fountain, and laughs loudly at a poet whose patron is watching. He knows where to stand, whom to greet, and when to leave before the crowd grows bored. At midday he enters a shaded portico where clients wait with petitions. One asks for help in a property dispute. Another seeks a place for his son. A third brings a basket of figs and an expression of painful hope. The arranger listens, promises little, and remembers everything. Behind him, a slave keeps notes on a wax tablet. Brother Aldwin leans nearer to the page. The monk's sleeve brushes the salt ring, scattering a few grains across the floor. The dog rises at once and stares into the darkness beyond the table. Then monastery bells sound overhead, faint through stone. The Roman forum begins to dim. Before the image closes, you see the silver-haired patron pause upon the steps of the basilica. His clients gather around him. Merchants call his name. A poet bows. A politician reaches for his hand. For one quiet instant, every eye in the square turns towards the same man. Then the page whispers beneath your fingers. A crowd is the mirror in which power learns its face. The whisper fades, but the painted crowd does not vanish. Instead, the forum narrows into a single face carved above an archway, stern, smooth, and larger than any living head ought to be. Its blank marble eyes gaze beyond the market, beyond the city, with the calm confidence of a man who has never been asked to carry his own firewood. The image opens again. You stand beside a Roman sculptor's workshop, where chips of white stone cover the floor like pale snow. Dust hangs in the air. Apprentices turn wooden drills, polish cheeks with gritty powder, and carry water in jars to settle the powder that coats their hair and tunics. A master sculptor walks around an unfinished bust, measuring the forehead, nose, chin, and distance between the eyes with a cord. The sitter is not present. Instead, the sculptor works from a wax death mask, a painted panel, and instructions sent by an official who insists that the emperor must look youthful, commanding, merciful, victorious, and somehow modest. It is a demanding collection of virtues, for one knows the master adjusts the marble mouth. He softens the lines around it, lifts the chin, and deepens the eyes. The result resembles the ruler, but not too closely. A Roman portrait may preserve wrinkles, scars, and thinning hair when age suggests discipline and service. Yet, it may also smooth those same marks when the state requires vigor. Truth is welcome, provided truth understands who pays for the pedestal. No one can quite agree whether the emperor ever sees this statue. That hardly matters. Copies of the official likeness travel farther than the man himself. You watch artisans use measuring points to reproduce the approved head. Clay models are packed in straw. Plaster molds cross roads by wagon and sea by merchant ship. Local workshops carve versions from marble, limestone, bronze, or whatever stone the province can afford. Soon the same curled hair, composed mouth, and lifted gaze appear in temples, bathhouses, basilicas, theatres, and town squares, from misty northern forts to sun-bright ports. The face becomes a message. It says, "The ruler is present." It says the ruler watches. It says the ruler has excellent hair, even when nature has issued a different report. The manuscript carries you into a foundry. Bronze glows in a clay furnace, while workers feed charcoal through narrow vents. Bellows sigh steadily. A wax model of an imperial head stands within a shell of baked clay. When the wax melts away, molten metal fills the hollow space. Some swear that a sprig of laurel placed near the furnace prevents flaws in royal images. Even now it is hard to tell whether the laurel helps, though the foreman keeps one close and shouts at anyone who moves it. When the bronze cools, the clay shell is broken. Files smooth the seams. The eyes receive touches of glass stone or dark paste. A polished statue can seem alive, especially after wine and from a respectful distance. Then the page turns toward a mint. The noise changes. Hammers strike dies in a metallic rhythm. Workers heat discs of gold, silver, and bronze, place them between engraved stamps, and hit them hard enough to impress an image on both sides. One blow gives the coin a ruler's profile. Another marks titles, victories, gods, temples, or promises of peace. You pick up a coin. It is no wider than the tip of your thumb, yet the emperor's face is clear. The brow, nose, jaw, and wreath are arranged so that even someone who cannot read may recognize authority. Coins pass through more hands than statues ever will. Soldiers receive them in pay. Farmers carry them to market. Innkeepers bite them. Tax collectors count them. Sailors lose them beneath benches. Children hide them in cracks. Thieves value them sincerely. Each exchange repeats the portrait. A ruler may never enter a distant village, but his face buys bread there. A provincial woman may never see Rome yet. She knows which profile belongs to the man whose name is spoken during ceremonies. A frontier soldier may curse wages, then spend the emperor's likeness on ale. Reputation travels in a purse rubbed smooth by ordinary fingers. The manuscript shows coins changing as reigns change. One emperor appears young and clean-shaven. Another chooses a beard linked with philosophers and Greek learning. Another wears a radiate crown, its pointed rays declaring connection with the sun. Some portraits grow increasingly ideal, others heavy with age and military severity. Those who tell the tale never fully agree how much these choices come from the ruler and how much from advisors, artists, or visual customs. The effect remains the same. A familiar face becomes attached to victory order grain law and the hope that roads remain safe enough for merchants to arrive. Back in the monastery chamber, Brother Aldwin turns a loose bronze coin. It is Roman green with age. The profile is nearly erased, but a laurel wreath survives. He says the coin was found inside the cedar box between two pages, as though used by some forgotten reader to mark a place. The dog sniffs it and sneezes, a sensible judgment considering how many hands have touched it. You return your gaze to the manuscript. Now statues line a long road. Rain stains some faces. Birds perch on imperial crowns. Children play beneath marble sandals. One bust receives garlands, while another belonging to a condemned ruler has its name chiseled away. The stone body remains, but the face is recut to resemble the next emperor. Even memory can be economical. A sculptor reshapes the jaw, alters the hair, and claims the old monument for a new age. Yet traces of the former face linger beneath the new one like a rumor beneath polite conversation. The page darkens until only the coin remains bright. It turns slowly in air, one side showing the ruler, the other a winged victory holding a wreath. Around its edge, letters promise stability. Above you, the monastery bell sounds again. The half-burned candle trembles. Brother Aldwin closes one hand around the ancient coin, and the painted emperor's profile seems to turn slightly toward him. Then new words rise beneath the image. A face repeated becomes a presence repeated becomes power. The words linger above the coin until the gold strokes soften and slide across the page. The emperor's profile fades into a woman's reflection, seen first in a polished silver mirror held by a servant with tired arms. She sits beneath painted vines in a chamber bright with mourning, while attendants arrange combs, pins, ribbons, jars, and little ivory boxes upon a low table. Her name changes before you can read it. Perhaps she is an empress, perhaps a senator's wife, perhaps merely a wealthy woman whose household possesses enough servants to make dressing resemble military planning. No one can quite agree whether the manuscript shows one famous matron or many blended together. An attendant divides her hair with a bronze needle. Another lifts the front locks into rows of tight curls. A third brings padded supports, wool forms, and false braids made from purchased hair. The arrangement rises higher, layer by layer. You watch hot curling irons pass near her temples. The servant tests one against paper before touching the hair. Yet a faint smell of singed wool drifts through the room. Beeswax oils and perfumed pomade hold the shape. Fine nets threaded with gold secure the back. Pins carved from bone and ivory disappear beneath the curls, though their decorated heads remain visible like tiny ornaments along a wall. The manuscript shows similar styles spreading through the city. Women study portraits of imperial households displayed in public places. They examine profiles on coins painted panels, carried in processions, and statues standing in baths or theatres. A new arrangement appears upon an empress, and soon elite households ask their hairdressers to copy it. Later, merchants sell simpler versions to women with fewer attendants and less patience. A style travels outward, changing as it goes. In one market stall, a seller offers imported hair in shades from black to pale gold. Some comes from enslaved women, some from distant provinces, and some from sources the merchant describes with suspicious vagueness. A customer rubs the strands between her fingers while her companion whispers that northern hair is fashionable this season. Some swear that wearing another woman's hair carries a little of her fortune. Others fear it may carry her temper. Even now it is hard to tell which belief causes more careful bargaining. The page turns to cosmetics. Small spoons lift white powder from a jar. Rouge made from mineral pigment brightens cheeks. Soot darkens eyelids. Crushed substances, oils, resins, and flower extracts become creams or scents. Certain recipes promise smooth skin through honey, barley, eggs, or ground beans. Others include ingredients so unpleasant that the woman using them deserves admiration merely for remaining indoors. You see an attendant dab perfume behind her mistress's ears and along her wrists. The scent combines rosy myrrh and something sharp from the eastern trade routes. It announces wealth before the wearer speaks. Imported ingredients cost dearly, and their rarity becomes part of the message. To smell expensive is another way to be seen. Brother Aldwin shifts beside you. The chamber beneath the monastery seems colder now, yet the page gives off warmth. The half-burned candle drips wax onto the table. The dog with the torn ear settles against your boot, apparently less interested in Roman cosmetics than in the possibility of crumbs. The image widens into a banquet hall. Women recline or sit near couches, their garments falling in arranged folds. Stolas tunics, cloaks, belts, and shawls create fields of colour beneath the lamps. Purple borders suggest status. Fine linen reveals access to distant workshops. Silk, rare and costly, catches the light so softly that nearby guests pretend not to stare. Jewels speak more loudly. Pearls hang from ears. Emeralds and garnets gleam at throats. Gold bracelets coil around wrists like tame serpents. Rings crowd fingers, each stone chosen for beauty, rank, or protection. A carved amulet may guard against envy. A piece of coral may be worn because people believe it resists illness or misfortune. No one can quite agree whether jewels prevent bad luck, though they certainly attract attention to the person supposedly avoiding it. You notice how other guests observe the women. A hairstyle is copied in whispers before the meal ends. A necklace is remembered by someone who cannot recall the host's speech. A new shade of cloth appears first upon one noble shoulder and later in the shops, where dyers claim they have always known the secret. Reputation clings to appearance. An admired woman can make a perfume desirable by wearing it once in public. A disliked woman can ruin a style merely by becoming too closely associated with it. Satirists mock towering hair-painted faces and excessive jewelry, yet their complaints help preserve every detail. Moral outrage, the manuscript suggests, is often excellent advertising. The scene shifts toward a bath complex. Steam softens the air. Women exchange news while attendants carry towels, oil flasks, combs, and wooden sandals. Here fashion travels through conversation. Someone mentions an empress's new braids. Someone else claims a rival has begun using too much white powder. Another insists a famous matron receives letters from an actor. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the letters exist. By afternoon, their contents are known throughout 3 neighborhoods. You hear laughter beneath the painted arches. Gossip moves faster than carts because it requires no road toll. The manuscript returns to the silver mirror. The seated woman studies herself, but not with vanity alone. She understands that every public appearance becomes a message. Her dress may express family dignity, political loyalty, fertility, mourning wealth, modesty, or calculated magnificence. She cannot fully control what observers decide, yet she can give them something deliberate to remember. An attendant places a final pearl into her hair. Then she rises. Servants open the doors and daylight spills across the mosaic floor. Outside, a litter waits. Shopkeepers, clients, petitioners, and curious passers-by crowd the street. As she steps forward, heads turn toward the height of her curls, the gleam of her earrings, and the perfume moving ahead of her like an invisible herald. For a moment, even the emperor's face on the coin seems secondary. The painted woman looks toward you through the mirror. New letters gather beneath her reflection. What the powerful wear, the watchful world learns to desire. The final letters shine beneath the silver mirror, then loosen like threads of gold drawn by an unseen hand. The pearl in the woman's hair becomes a bright point of light. Around it gathers dust, shouting banners, and the oval of an arena beneath a Roman sun. You hear the crowd before you see it fully. The sound rises in waves through stone passages, a living rumble made from thousands of voices, stamping sandals, clapping hands, wooden rattles, horns, and vendors calling for thirsty customers. The noise is vast, yet the manuscript lets it reach you as though through walls softened enough for the monastery chamber to remain calm around your shoulders. A gladiator waits beneath the stands. He wears a padded guard on one arm and a belt decorated with bronze plates. His helmet rests beside him, its face mask severe and almost inhuman. A servant rubs oil into his skin while another checks the straps at his knees. Nearby, a trainer speaks quietly, pointing toward the sand with a wooden rod. The gladiator listens without answering. No one can quite agree whether he is afraid. The face is composed, but his fingers open and close around the handle of his shield. Beside the doorway hangs a small charm shaped like a phallus, intended to turn away envy and evil fortune. Roman athletes, soldiers, children, and travelers often carry such protective objects. Some swear that the charm works best when no one laughs at it. In the monastery chamber, Brother Aldwin studies the page with seriousness. Though one eyebrow rises, the gate opens. Light pours into the passage. The gladiator steps into the arena, and the crowd speaks his name. It rolls from one side of the stands to the other. Painted signs lift above heads. Men point. Women wave cloths. Children lean dangerously over stone rails until attendants pull them back. The fighter has appeared here many times, and the audience knows the shape of his helmet, the angle of his shield, the measured way he circles the sand. His fame does not belong only to victory. It grows from style. One gladiator charges quickly, another waits. One raises his weapon after a successful movement, another turns toward the crowd with deliberate calm. Admirers choose favorites according to skill, appearance, courage, origin, or simple instinct. They argue in taverns, paint names on walls, and repeat stories whose accuracy decreases as their entertainment improves. The manuscript moves closer to the spectators. A young woman wears a hairpin engraved with a gladiator's name. A baker sells small cakes shaped like shields. A potter displays oil lamps decorated with arena scenes. On a plaster wall, someone has scratched that a famous fighter is the delight of all women. Another hand adds that he owes money. Celebrity remains vulnerable to bookkeeping. The image shifts from the arena to a shop near the baths. Tiny clay figurines stand in rows, each representing a particular type of fighter. Children trade them. Adults pretend not to care, then correct the children when they identify the wrong helmet. A merchant offers a vial said to contain oil scraped from the body of a victorious gladiator. Buyers believe it may bring strength, attractiveness, or luck. Even now, it is hard to tell whether the vial contains anything more remarkable than old olive oil and excellent marketing. The border trembles. Now 4 horses burst from a starting gate. Their chariot follows behind them, light and narrow its wheels, throwing dust into the air. The driver leans against the reins wrapped around his body. He wears the color of his racing faction, and the stands erupt into divided rivers of red, white, blue, and green. The charioteer is smaller than the statues made of him. He must be light, quick, and able to balance while the team races around the turning posts. The wheels pass close to rivals. Hooves strike the ground in a relentless rhythm. Each circuit tightens the crowd's attention until every person seems to breathe with the horses. Brother Aldwin grips the edge of the table. The dog lifts its head. The chariot takes the turn safely, and the monk exhales. Drivers can become wealthy beyond imagination. Their names travel across the empire. Supporters praise them in inscriptions, discuss their horses, remember their victories, and curse rival factions with impressive dedication. A successful charioteer may earn more than men born into respectable families, though status does not always rise as quickly as money. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether a famous driver enjoys freedom from his admirers or merely exchanges one master for thousands. The race ends beneath a storm of dust. The winning driver raises one arm, officials bring a palm branch and prize money, fans surge toward exits already telling the story. By evening, a tavern painter adds another victory mark beneath the driver's portrait. By morning, merchants sell cups bearing his faction colour. The manuscript carries you through Roman streets after dark. In a smoky eating house, men debate which gladiator showed greater discipline. At a fountain, women discuss whether a charioteer favours one horse above the others. Near a shrine, a boy leaves a small offering for the blue faction. On a doorway, someone has written a fighter's name beside a heart. Fame follows these performers beyond the arena. It enters bedrooms, workshops, kitchens, barracks, and bathhouses. It sells lamps, charms, cups, snacks, stories, and hope. The celebrated body becomes an image that others carry away, repeat purchase, desire, or envy. Yet the manuscript does not hide the uncertainty beneath the applause. Gladiators may be admired while still marked by low status. Charioteers may be rich while exposed to danger. The crowd praises them loudly, then turns toward a new favorite. Their names can fill a city and still depend upon the next appearance. The half-burned monastery candle bends suddenly. A gust seems to pass through the sealed chamber. Sand spills from the painted arena across the page, though none falls onto the table. Within it the gladiator and charioteer stand side by side. One holds a helmet, the other holds a palm branch. Behind them, thousands of tiny faces watch. Then the words appear. The crowd may love the person, but it always hungers for the performance. The final sentence remains suspended above the sand until the letters bend into strokes. The arena crowd falls silent. Helmets, chariots, banners, and stone tiers flatten into lines of ink, and those lines gather upon a scroll held by a thin man in a faded cloak. He stands beneath a portico while rain darkens the street beyond. The poet is not dressed like a hero. His sandals are worn, his belt is plain, and one edge of his cloak has been repaired with thread of the wrong colour. Yet he watches every passer-by with patience of a falcon. A senator approaches with 2 attendants, and the poet straightens at once. He recites 3 polished lines. The senator smiles. A servant gives the poet a coin. Brother Aldwin murmurs that inspiration appears to have excellent timing. You follow the poet through the painted city. He moves between houses, baths, libraries, dining rooms, and shaded colonnades carrying wax tablets, crowded with revisions. He praises wealthy patrons in verse, compares their generosity to rivers, their wisdom to ancient kings, and their gardens to the fields of paradise. When a patron is especially important, even his baldness may become a sign of philosophical seriousness. No one can quite agree whether the poet believes his compliments. Belief is useful, but supper is immediate. Patronage allows words to survive. A rich supporter may offer money, lodging introductions, or access to a private reading. He may pay a copyist to reproduce the work. He may place the poet near powerful guests at dinner, where a memorable passage travels from mouth to mouth before the wine is finished. The poet understands that writing alone is not enough. He must be heard. The manuscript carries you into a dining chamber lit by bronze lamps. Guests recline beside low tables bearing olives, eggs, fish, breadfruit, and sauces whose ingredients are discussed with more confidence than certainty. The host signals and the poet rises. He clears his throat. The room settles. His poem celebrates the host's country estate, though the poet has visited it only once and spent most of that afternoon avoiding a goose. He describes peaceful groves, pure fountains, noble ancestors and labourers content beyond all reasonable expectation. The guests laugh in the proper places. The host nods. Two young men memorize a sharp line so they can repeat it later and appear clever. A good phrase escapes its author quickly. It enters baths, courts, schools, taverns, and letters. It may be copied accurately, altered carelessly, or attached to a better-known name. Some swear that certain famous sayings belong to entirely different writers. Even now it is hard to tell whether the original poet would feel robbed or relieved to be remembered at all. The page turns to a bookshop near the forum. Scrolls lie in pigeonholes along the wall. Copyists work at benches, their fingers stained black and red. One reads aloud while several others write, producing multiple copies at once. Errors creep in. A missing word vanishes from every copy after it. A bored scribe replaces an unfamiliar phrase with something easier. Another adds a joke in the margin and accidentally gives it a longer life than the poem. The poet enters and examines the display. His work lies beside histories, speeches, love poetry, agricultural advice, and a manual explaining dreams. He moves his scroll closer to the doorway. Ancient publicity sometimes requires a quiet hand and an inattentive shopkeeper. A rival poet arrives. He is broader, better dressed, and followed by a young admirer who laughs before every joke is completed. The two poets greet each other warmly, which the manuscript makes clear is not the same as affection. By sunset, each has composed an insult about the other. Roman literary rivalry can be elegant, personal, and remarkably durable. A poet mocks another's style, poverty, breath ambition, ancestry, or suspicious attachment to wealthy widows. The attacked writer replies, friends repeat the sharpest lines, patrons choose sides. The quarrel becomes entertainment, and both names spread farther because of it. Those who tell the tale never fully agree. whether the hatred is genuine. A public enemy can be nearly as useful as a patron. Brother Aldwin turns the page with care. In the monastery chamber the dog sleeps beside the salt ring. The half-burned candle has shortened to a yellow pool around the wick. Above you, the abbey bell marks an hour that feels very far from Rome. The manuscript shows the poet alone now. He sits in a rented room beneath roof tiles ticking with evening rain. A small lamp smokes beside him. He scratches lines onto a wax tablet, smooths them away with the flat end of his stylus, then writes again. Fame may depend upon patrons, performances, rivals, and copyists, but the work itself still grows in silence. He searches for a voice others will recognize. Some poets present themselves as lovers wounded by desire, others become stern moral guides, witty observers, country gentlemen, angry exiles, or reluctant servants of great men. The public persona may resemble the writer, but it is shaped as carefully as an imperial portrait. A repeated tone becomes familiar. Familiarity becomes expectation. Expectation becomes a following. The scene drifts into a public recitation hall. Rows of listeners wait beneath painted ceilings. A poet's friends sit near the front and begin applauding at moments. A late arrival enters loudly enough to be noticed. One listener pretends to understand a difficult reference. Another quietly falls asleep behind a raised hand. Roman audiences, like monastery congregations, contain every degree of devotion. The poet begins. His voice carries through the chamber. He praises, teases, exaggerates, and pauses. Listeners lean forward. A patron smiles when his name appears. A rival frowns when his own face appears in a less generous comparison. At the final line, applause rises. The poet bows. Yet the manuscript carries the sound beyond the hall. It follows guests into streets, rides inside letters, enters shops, and settles upon the tongues of people who were never present. The poem becomes larger than the room where it was first heard. The painted poet looks directly toward you. Ink gathers beneath his feet, then forms a final sentence. He who controls the story may borrow the attention of those who control the world. The final sentence darkens, and the poet's scroll rolls itself closed. For a moment only the monastery chamber remains around you, cold stone, the fading beeswax candle, Brother Aldwin's white beard, and the dog breathing softly beside your boot. Then a trumpet sounds from somewhere inside the manuscript. It is not the silver note of an abbey horn calling travellers from a flooded road. This sound is brighter, sharper, and followed by drums, wheels, hooves, and the roar of a city gathered to witness itself. The page opens into a Roman triumph. You stand beneath a high gate where garlands hang from columns and red cloth streams between statues. Citizens crowd balconies. Children sit upon shoulders. Vendors carry baskets of nuts, bread, dates, and watered wine through spaces that hardly seem wide enough for a sparrow. Laurel leaves scatter beneath sandals. Incense rises in pale ribbons, sweetening the smells of sweat. Horses' leather dust and sun-warmed stone. far along the ceremonial road the emperor approaches. At first you see only standards. Golden eagles sway above the crowd. Painted boards display conquered rivers, mountain passes, cities and forts. Captured armor hangs from poles. Musicians march in measured rows. Priests lead white animals decorated with ribbons. Officials carry wreaths, spoils, and tablets naming victories that most spectators know only as distant places pronounced with varying confidence. No one can quite agree how much of the painted geography is accurate. A blue strip may represent a river, a sea, or an artist who has run out of patience. Accuracy matters less than scale. The procession must make the victory feel larger than any ordinary journey. Then the imperial chariot enters the avenue. Its wheels are gilded. Laurel crowns the emperor's head. Purple cloth catches the light at his shoulders. His face carries the careful calm of the statues you have already seen. He does not grin, wave wildly, or lean down toward the crowd. He appears above ordinary excitement, as if triumph follows him naturally, and the cheers are merely weather. Yet every detail is arranged. The route leads through streets lined with monuments. The timing places the chariot beneath the best arches as the light strikes their carvings. Supporters begin chants before uncertain spectators can decide what to shout. Officials distribute coins. Assistants guide the crowd into tighter rows near important corners so that every entrance appears overwhelming. Ancient magnificence, you discover, requires many people carrying ropes. Behind the emperor stands a servant close enough to speak into his ear. Some later stories claim that such a servant reminds the ruler that he is mortal. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the warning is spoken during every triumph only, during some or mostly in the imagination of writers who enjoy seeing pride gently pinched. The idea survives because it is satisfying. Even the greatest ruler must hear that glory ends. The crowd, however, is not interested in endings today. Coins scatter from attendants, people stoop quickly. Dignity becoming flexible whenever bronze touches the pavement. A loaf distribution waits near the forum. Public tables offer grain tokens. The emperor's generosity reaches the citizens through food, money, games, and promises carved into stone. You watch a woman lift a coin and wipe it upon her sleeve. The imperial profile shines beneath the dust. Beside her, an old man holds up a grain token and praises the ruler's concern for ordinary households. Perhaps he means it. Perhaps he remembers last year's shortage and prefers not to insult the source of this year's bread. Reputation becomes easier to admire when it arrives in a sack of wheat. The manuscript shifts from the procession to a construction site. Stonecutters work beneath wooden scaffolds. Oxen drag blocks over rollers. Labourers mix lime sand water and crushed brick in broad pits. Surveyors stretch cords across foundations. Foremen argue over measurements with the solemn fury of monks debating where to place a cupboard. A monumental arch rises above the road. Its reliefs show the emperor addressing troops, receiving submission, offering sacrifice, and standing beside gods or personified virtues. The figures are arranged so that he appears larger, calmer, and more central than everyone else. Soldiers turn toward him, captives bow. Victory floats above his shoulder with a wreath. The scene is not merely remembered, it is edited. A confused retreat becomes a disciplined withdrawal. A costly campaign becomes a sequence of noble decisions. Allies shrink into the background, rivals disappear. Weather, hunger, and bureaucratic delay are not invited onto the marble. The emperor's image stands where roads meet, where crowds gather, where judges sit, and where merchants pass. Each monument repeats the same lesson until the city itself seems to agree. This ruler wins, this ruler builds, this ruler feeds. This ruler restores the world. Brother Aldwin traces one painted column without touching the vellum. He murmurs that abbots also enjoy inscriptions praising repairs they did not personally perform. Outside the chamber, a distant monastery bell sounds through several layers of stone marking the night office. The half-burned candle flares and settles. The manuscript carries you into a newly opened bath complex. Water runs through lead pipes into warm pools. Steam hangs beneath vaulted ceilings painted with sea creatures and stars. Marble floors shine with moisture. Citizens enter beneath an inscription naming the emperor who dedicates the building to public use. Few of them will ever meet him. They will, however, sit in his bath, walk through his portico shelter beneath his roof, drink from his fountain, and curse his maintenance staff when the water turns cold. This is influence-made architectural. The gift becomes part of daily life. Each visit renews the association between imperial rule and comfort. A child learns the ruler's name from the inscription above the door. A merchant arranges meetings beneath an imperial statue. An old veteran warms his joints in a room built from taxes collected across provinces he has never seen. Some swear that certain emperors personally care about these public works. Others believe generosity is simply another form of control. Even now it is hard to tell where genuine concern ends and performance begins, especially when the roof does not leak. The page turns to an amphitheater, bright with awnings. Crowds receive free admission to games sponsored in the emperor's name. Trumpets announce fighters. Animals are displayed. Officials sit according to rank. The ruler occupies a visible place where thousands can observe his reactions. He is both spectator and spectacle. When he approves mercy, the crowd sees compassion. When he rewards skill, they see discernment. When he remains composed amid noise, they see authority. Every gesture becomes material for stories repeated at evening meals. A ruler cannot control each witness, but he can control the scene placed before them. You see servants distributing wooden tablets announcing another public gift. Elsewhere, clerks record donations to veterans. Messengers carry news of tax relief after a disaster. Priests include the emperor's welfare in ceremony. Town councils copy official language into local decrees. Repetition strengthens the image. The same virtues return again and again: courage, piety, generosity, restraint, justice, victory, peace. They appear upon coins, monuments, dedications, speeches, festivals, and public prayers. When reality refuses to cooperate, the virtues continue their duties without it. A campaign fails, yet victory appears on the next coin. A food shortage worsens, yet abundance stands carved beside a cornucopia. A ruler distrusts half the Senate, yet harmony sits peacefully on the reverse of his currency. Roman symbols are loyal employees. The manuscript shows an imperial household preparing a public appearance. Attendants arrange garments. A secretary reviews petitions the emperor may answer before witnesses. Advisors select which veterans, children, priests, and ambassadors will stand nearby. A physician recommends rest. A courtier recommends visibility. Visibility wins. The emperor steps onto a balcony. Below him the forum waits. He speaks of restored temples, secured borders, fair grain, honored ancestors, and a future made stable by his labor. His words travel poorly across the largest spaces, so officials repeat them. Copies circulate. Local speakers adapt them. Poets polish them. Priests fold them into ceremony. By the time the message reaches a distant provincial town, it sounds as though the emperor personally repaired every bridge, calmed every sea, and persuaded winter to end. No one in the painted crowd appears troubled by this efficiency. You drift with the manuscript toward a provincial city at dusk. A local council gathers beneath torchlight to dedicate a statue sent from Rome. The sculpted head resembles the approved portrait. The body may once have belonged to another ruler, but fresh carving and a new inscription have made it politically young again. Children scatter flowers. Musicians play. A magistrate reads a speech praising imperial mercy. Behind him, a clerk holds the text close to a lamp. The wind keeps lifting one corner, and the clerk spends most of the ceremony struggling with parchment while pretending not to exist. You understand something quiet beneath the spectacle. The emperor's image is not created by the emperor alone. Stonecutters shape it. Mint workers strike it. Poets praise it. Priests sanctify it. Magistrates repeat it. Merchants display it. Soldiers carry it. Citizens gossip about it. Servants position it beneath the correct light. Even opponents help define it by attacking the image everyone already recognizes. Power becomes a cooperative performance, though not everyone cooperates willingly. The scene darkens into a palace corridor. At night, the ruler walks past busts of predecessors. Lamps throw long shadows beneath their chins. Some are remembered as wise. Some are feared. Some have suffered the removal of names and faces after death. Their monuments survive in pieces altered by later hands. The emperor pauses before his own portrait. It looks younger than he does, stronger, more certain. The face in stone has no sleepless eyes, no private hesitation, no cough hidden behind a sleeve. It is the ruler distilled into message freed from the inconvenience of being human. For the first time, the emperor seems tired. You watch him lift one hand toward the marble cheek, but stop before touching it. Perhaps he recognizes himself. Perhaps he recognizes the stranger he has become in public memory. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether rulers believe their own ceremonies. Some may stand apart from the performance. Others may slowly inhabit it, hearing the same virtues until repetition feels like proof. The manuscript draws the triumphal road, the arch, the baths, the amphitheatre, the coins, and the balcony into one final image. The emperor stands at the centre. Around him, gifts become gratitude. Monuments become memory ceremonies, become stories, and stories become a kind of second empire, built not from roads and forts, but from attention. In the monastery chamber, the dog suddenly rises. It faces the iron door. A faint scraping comes from the stair beyond, followed by the soft knock of something against wood. Brother Aldwin turns towards the sound, but the manuscript brightens before either of you can move. The painted emperor lifts his laurel crown. For one breath, he looks not at the Roman crowd, but directly into the cold chamber beneath the abbey. Then words form beneath his chariot. The city for a lifetime and men obey. Rule its memory, and they obey long after you are dust. The emperor's warning remains upon the page, while the scraping beyond the iron door stops. Brother Aldwin listens, one hand closed around his key ring. The dog stands rigid beside the table. Nothing follows, only the monastery bell fading through stone and the hiss of wax around the candle wick. Then the painted laurel crown breaks apart into lines of red, black, and ochre. A wall rises beneath them. Its plaster is sun-warmed, cracked and crowded with writing. Letters overlap. Election notices, shop signs, names, jokes, prayers, boasts, and declarations of love. Some are painted by professionals. Others are scratched with nails, knives, charcoal, or fingertips. The manuscript carries you into Pompeii before dawn. The city is quiet as shutters open. Bakers rake embers beneath ovens. Donkeys turn millstones in slow circles. Water splashes from public fountains into stone basins worn smooth by jars. A woman sweeps dust from a doorway into the street. You walk beside walls coloured red, yellow, black and white. Many hold formal notices painted in broad letters. They recommend candidates praise their honesty or urge neighbours to support them. Bakers, fullers, innkeepers and fruit sellers endorse particular names. One notice claims that all respectable people favour a candidate. Another announces support from the late drinkers. Roman politics welcomes endorsements from every hour. A sign painter balances upon a wooden stool. His assistant holds a lamp near the plaster while the master lays out letters with a brush. They work at night when the wall is cool and the street quiet. Whitewash covers an older message, though its dark strokes remain faintly visible beneath the new one. No one can quite agree whether the earlier candidate lost withdrew or simply failed to pay the painter. The page moves toward the forum. Their official announcements compete with human restlessness. Someone has scratched a name into a column. Another hand adds a complaint about a debtor. A third praises a gladiator. A fourth declares that a certain man is a thief, although the accused has written underneath that the first writer is a liar. The wall becomes an argument that never sleeps. Near a tavern, painted jars announce wine for sale. A small image of a cup helps customers who cannot read. Prices appear beside names of vintages. One inscription promises excellent drink, while another visitor later records disappointment with the water. Some swear that tavern keepers mix chalk herbs, seawater, or smoke with inferior wine. Even now it is hard to tell which recipes are real and which are slanders composed by thirsty customers. You duck beneath an awning. Inside, lamps smoke against the ceiling. Diners eat beans, bread, olives, cheese, and stewed vegetables from pottery bowls. Dice knock across a table. A traveller uses a stylus to scratch a brief message into plaster beside his bench. He records that he was here, nothing more. Yet the sentence survives inside the manuscript with a strange tenderness. An ordinary man passing through an ordinary room refuses to disappear without leaving two small words behind. The image shifts to a narrow street beneath hanging laundry. A young woman pauses beneath a wall covered in names. She reads a line declaring that someone loves someone else. Beneath it, another person has added that love causes pain. A third advises the lovers to sleep. Brother Aldwin almost smiles. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether the messages are sincere, mocking, or written by troublesome friends. The uncertainty does not weaken them. It makes the ancient street feel crowded with familiar hearts. You see verses copied from famous poets' lines, altered from memory, and clumsy attempts at original poetry. One writer complains that the wall must be astonished it has not collapsed beneath so much bad writing. The wall remains standing, perhaps out of spite. Graffiti appears in baths, houses, shops, theatres, barracks, and taverns. It praises actors and racing teams. It records sexual boasts, insults, debts, meetings, prayers, and jokes. Some words belong to enslaved workers, others to merchants, soldiers, visitors, women, and children. The city speaks through fragments. A grand inscription tells what officials want remembered. A scratch tells who annoyed a waiter. The manuscript leads you into a bakery. Round loaves sit in rows near the oven. Flour dust coats the workers' arms. A small shrine stands in one corner with painted household spirits. Someone has drawn a rough face near the doorway, giving it enormous ears. The baker claims it resembles a tax collector. No one asks the tax collector. Outside, a campaign notice praises the baker's preferred candidate. Customers read it while waiting. The endorsement joins bread and neighborhood trust. People who know the baker may consider his judgment. People who dislike his bread may vote the other way. Influence clings to familiar places. At the amphitheatre, the walls preserve names of gladiators and victories. Fans carve hearts beside favourites. Rival supporters answer with insults. Merchants nearby sell lamps and cups bearing arena images, just as the earlier pages showed. Fame moves between performance and plaster, strengthened whenever another hand repeats a name. Brother Aldwin bends close to one painted wall. A tiny dog has been drawn near a doorway, one ear torn. The dog beside your boot growls softly. You look from the page to the animal. The resemblance may be chance. Medieval darkness is generous with coincidences, particularly when candles are failing. The Pompeian street brightens toward noon, carts rattle over stones, vendors raise awnings, voices call from windows, new paint covers old words and new scratches cut through fresh paint. The city edits itself. Then the sky above the painted roofs turns pale. A fine dust settles upon a red wall, softening the election notices. People glance toward a distant mountain, but the manuscript does not follow what comes later. This section of the Codex preserves the city in its living hour before silence, while its people still bargain, flirt, complain, advertise, and write. The page begins to close. You place your fingers near the margin and hear the last voices fading through stone streets. A lover repeats a name. A merchant praises his wine. A voter recommends his candidate. A stranger writes that he was here. Dark letters gather across the plaster. Empires speak in marble, but ordinary people whisper from walls. The final words fade across the plaster, and the dusty street of Pompeii folds inward like a painted shutter. For a breath, the monastery chamber returns in full damp stone, cooling wax, Brother Aldwin's keys, and the dog with the torn ear staring at its own likeness upon the page. Then the little painted dog turns its head. It trots away from the doorway in Pompeii and disappears beneath a striped awning. You follow, and the manuscript opens into a Roman shopping street just after sunrise. Wooden shutters lift one by one, hinges creak, awnings unroll above narrow fronts, shopkeepers sweep thresholds, sprinkle water across dust, and arrange baskets where the morning light can find them. Clay jars stand in rows, bronze pans catch dull flashes of gold, loaves cool behind a bakery window. Somewhere nearby, oil spits upon a hot plate, and the smell of onions, herbs, fish sauce, and warm bread settles into the street with the confidence of a landlord. You move slowly among the opening shops. Unlike the great monuments of emperors, these places cannot rely on marble arches or soldiers carrying standards. A baker, fuller, perfumer, cobbler, or tavern keeper must attract attention from people who are already tired, distracted, suspicious of prices, and walking past with limited coin. The first task is to be remembered. Above one doorway hangs a painted image of a mule turning a millstone. The baker's name appears beneath it, but the picture speaks even to those who cannot read. Across the street, a wine cellar uses a painted bunch of grapes. A metal worker hangs a small bronze hammer. A fuller whose workshop cleans and treats cloth displays a tunic brighter than anything worn by the workers inside. The symbols become familiar landmarks. A customer may not know the official street name if the street has one worth using. Instead, directions follow signs, shrines, fountains, and memorable corners. Turn beside the painted serpent, continue past the red mule, stop at the shop with the golden cup. Rome is navigated through stories attached to walls. No one can quite agree whether the golden cup is truly covered with gold leaf or merely yellow paint mixed by an optimistic apprentice. The distinction becomes less important after sunset. The manuscript guides you into the bakery. The room is warm enough to make your damp, medieval cloak feel suddenly absurd. Millstones occupy the rear of the workshop, each shaped like two heavy cones fitted together. Donkeys or enslaved workers turn them, grinding grain into flour that drifts over every surface. The baker's arms are white to the elbows. His hair is white. His eyebrows are white. He looks like a man who has been lightly buried and has decided to continue working. He presses a carved stamp into the top of a round loaf. The mark carries his name. When the bread reaches a household tavern or market stall, the stamp identifies its maker. A good loaf strengthens the name. A burnt loaf does the opposite. Quality travels with the product, and the product travels farther than the baker. You watch customers examine the crusts. One taps the bottom of a loaf, another smells it. A household servant asks whether the flour is fresh. The baker answers with wounded dignity, as though freshness has been invented specifically to insult him. Behind the counter, his wife scratches figures onto a wax tablet. She remembers who pays promptly, who asks for credit, and which household expects larger loaves during festival days. Her memory is part of the business. A customer returns not only because the bread is reliable, but because she knows his name, his usual order, and the exact expression he makes before requesting a lower price. Trust grows from repetition. The manuscript carries you next to a perfume shop shaded by blue cloth. The air changes at once. Rose, saffron, myrrh, iris, cinnamon, pine resin, and sweet oils gather in layers, so rich that your nose cannot decide whether it has entered paradise or been given too much responsibility. Small glass bottles stand beside alabaster jars. Stoppered flasks rest in padded baskets. The shopkeeper wears a clean tunic and keeps his hands carefully oiled. He does not simply sell scent, he sells stories. One perfume is said to resemble the fragrance used in an imperial household. Another is blended from flowers gathered at dawn. A third contains resin from a tree growing beyond the eastern deserts, transported by caravan ship, warehouse, mule, and several merchants who each improve the tale before increasing the price. Some swear that certain perfumes attract affection or calm anger. Others dab aromatic oil upon the temples to ease headaches. Even now it is hard to tell whether the scent changes the heart, though it certainly changes the room. A wealthy customer arrives with 2 attendants. The perfumer opens his finest jar, but he does not immediately discuss cost. He describes the region where the ingredients grow, the difficulty of the journey, and the noble women rumoured to prefer the blend. The customer tests one drop upon her wrist. People nearby notice. The sale, if it comes, begins before the coin is exchanged. You recognize the same pattern from the woman in the silver mirror. A respected wearer lends her reputation to the product. The perfumer may later hint that ladies of distinction choose this scent carefully, avoiding names while ensuring everyone supplies one. Ancient advertising often rests upon a sentence that is not quite a lie because it is not quite specific. The page shifts toward a workshop where leather hangs from hooks. A cobbler sits upon a low stool, drawing a curved knife around a sole. Finished sandals line the wall. Some are plain, some studded with iron, some dyed red, and some too delicate for any street containing mud animals or normal Roman life. The cobbler points to a pair made for a local magistrate. He has placed it where visitors can see. The magistrate's purchase becomes proof of quality. A soldier may choose stronger sandals because men from a particular unit buy them here. An actor may prefer soft shoes from a maker known among performers. The shop's identity grows around the customers it serves. Reputation travels in both directions. A famous customer strengthens the craftsperson's name, while a poor product embarrasses the customer who recommended it. This encourages care, or at least careful excuses. A small shrine stands near the cobbler's doorway. Oil darkens the surface around painted household gods, and a garland of dried leaves hangs above them. Before opening each morning, the cobbler touches the shrine and leaves a crumb of bread. Some Roman shopkeepers seek protection from Mercury, god of trade and travellers, while others honour local spirits or family guardians. Brother Aldwin glances at the dog which has settled again beside the salt ring. The monk remarks softly that merchants appear to have many gods, but still keep strong locks. You follow the manuscript into a tavern near a busy crossing. A painted sign shows a cup and vine. Inside, smoke gathers under the ceiling. Amphorae stand against the wall with labels noting origin, vintage, or merchant. A counter contains round openings where large jars hold food and drink. Workers stop for bread, cheese, olives, beans, and wine mixed with water. The tavern keeper knows that travellers judge a place quickly. He keeps one lamp burning near the cleanest section of counter. He hangs a bright cloth near the door. He greets regular customers loudly enough for strangers to hear that regular customers exist. He places the most respectable guest near the front and encourages the man with the loudest complaint to sit farther inside. The performance is modest but deliberate. A tavern known for fair measures attracts repeat business. One known for watered wine attracts insults upon its walls. A keeper may mark jars, use distinctive cups, or cultivate a recognizable sign. He may also spread useful rumors at no additional cost. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether one famous Roman inn actually trained a talking raven to greet customers. The story survives because everyone wishes it were true, and because ravens, like tavern keepers, are skilled at repeating things without understanding them. The painted street grows busier. A fish seller calls out the morning catch. A woman selling garlands arranges roses and ivy near a shrine. A bronze worker rings a small bell to demonstrate its clarity. A bookseller places popular scrolls nearest the doorway. A physician displays instruments whose sharpness inspires either confidence or sudden recovery. Every trade develops a language of trust. Weights are shown, samples are offered, names are repeated, symbols are painted, recommendations pass between households. A customer asks a neighbor where to buy good oil, and the answer may be worth more than any official notice. You see market inspectors checking measures. They compare weights against public standards because dishonest scales damage more than one transaction. Yet suspicion never disappears. Buyers watch fingers jars and balance arms. Sellers protest their honesty with such enthusiasm that honesty begins to look exhausted. Beside an oil merchant's stall hangs a small charm shaped like an eye. It is meant to repel envy, the evil glance believed capable of bringing illness, bad luck, or spoiled goods. Blue stones, protective gestures, amulets and prayers guard both people and businesses from jealous attention. Fame, the manuscript seems to remind you, is useful but dangerous. To be noticed is to attract customers. To be noticed is also to attract rivals. A successful shopkeeper may find his sign copied. A popular perfume may be diluted by imitators. A baker's stamp may appear upon bread he never baked. Personal branding creates value, and value invites theft. The manuscript shows two pottery stalls facing one another across a market lane. Both sell red gloss cups. Both claim superior firing. Both display signs featuring dolphins. One owner insists that his dolphin was painted first. The other argues that his dolphin is clearly more dignified. The dolphins appear equally surprised by the dispute. Customers compare the shine, thickness, and price. One potter scratches his initials beneath the base of each vessel. The mark may be hidden during use, but it remains as proof of origin. When the cup travels to another town, breaks in a distant kitchen, or is buried for centuries beneath a collapsed wall, the name travels with it. Objects become small messengers. Brother Aldwin turns one page and the Roman shops begin to resemble the monastery's own world. You see a medieval market gathering beyond an abbey gate, though the image is faint as if the manuscript is borrowing from your memory. Wool merchants spread cloth across boards. A baker marks loaves for inspection. Pilgrims buy badges shaped like saint symbols. Apothecaries display painted jars. Guild signs hang above streets. Market tolls are collected beneath an oak beam while rain drips from every hood. The distance between the worlds narrows. A medieval craftsperson also depends upon recognizable work, honest weight, familiar marks, and the testimony of neighbors. A pilgrim chooses an inn because another traveller praises its straw mattresses. A lord buys cloth from a merchant trusted by his steward. A monastery purchases beeswax from a family known not to mix it with too much tallow. The tools change slowly. The hunger for trust does not. The manuscript returns to the Roman street at evening. Shutters begin to close. Shopkeepers count coins beneath lamps. Unsold bread is covered with cloth. Perfume jars are locked in chests. A cobbler sweeps leather scraps toward the threshold. The tavern grows louder as other businesses fall quiet. You walk past the signs once more, the mule, the grapes, the hammer, the golden cup. Each image now carries more than a trade. It holds the memory of faces, voices, bargains, scents, disappointments, and repeated satisfaction. A shop becomes known because people attach experience to a symbol, then carry that experience into conversation. The marketplace is a web of human memory. No herald commands it. No emperor fully controls it. It grows through countless small judgments made over bread, sandals, oil, wine cloth, and perfume. At the end of the street, the torn-eared dog in the manuscript sits beneath a painted sign. This time, the sign shows an open hand holding a flame. The real dog beside you stands. It walks around the stone table and faces the iron door again. From the stair comes the soft sound of a key touching metal. Brother Aldwin's own keys remain motionless at his belt. The half-burned candle lowers its flame, suddenly blue at the base. Before either of you can speak, the Roman shop signs fade into darkness. Only the hand and flame remain glowing above the painted doorway. Then a line appears beneath them. A name above a door is only paint until trust teaches the city to enter. The painted hand holding the flame remains bright after every shop sign disappears. Its fingers open slowly and the fire lifts from the palm. It becomes a torch carried through darkness by a runner wearing no armor, only a short tunic and a wreath. Stone paving gives way to a road descending toward a blue sea. Olive trees silver beneath the wind. Goats pick their way among rocks. Far ahead, white columns rise above a harbour where sails lean like pale wings against morning. The manuscript has carried you eastward into Greece. Brother Aldwin watches the page while the key sound beyond the iron door fades again. He does not move toward the stair. The dog remains standing, one ear tilted, but the painted torch draws your attention onward. You enter a theatre carved into a hillside. Rows of stone seats curve around an open stage. Citizens arrive carrying cushions, bread figs, and cups. Wealthier men sit near the front. Others climb higher, grumbling about the distance while insisting the view is excellent. An actor waits behind a painted screen. His mask has wide eyes and an open mouth shaped to carry expression across the space. Wigs, robes, boots, and props lie around him. A servant tightens a belt, another checks the mask for cracks. When he enters the stage, the audience recognizes him from the first line. Some admire his grave delivery, others prefer a rival with a stronger voice. A boy high in the seats repeats one gesture before the scene is finished. No one can quite agree whether celebrated actors are admired for sacred service, technical skill, personal charm, or the pleasing scandal of watching someone become another person in public. The play begins beneath the open sky. Choral voices rise, sandals strike the stage in rhythm. The story is old, but listeners lean toward it as though the ending may change through attention. Heroes suffer. Kings make poor decisions with impressive confidence. Messengers arrive carrying news everyone would rather postpone. Greek tragedy contains many royal households that would benefit from a quiet evening and fewer prophecies. The actor's fame travels after the performance. Spectators repeat his best passages at dinner. Patrons invite him to private gatherings. Cities compete to host renowned performers during festivals. His name becomes attached to roles, and younger actors copy his posture, voice, and pauses. The manuscript turns from the theatre to a stadium. Athletes rub oil across their shoulders beneath a colonnade. Trainers examine limbs, adjust leather straps, and speak quietly. Nearby, a man scrapes oil and dust from his skin with a curved bronze strigil. Some people preserve scrapings from famous athletes, believing they possess healing power. Even now it is hard to tell whether such mixtures cure anything, though sellers rarely allow uncertainty to disturb the price. A runner steps toward the starting line. He crouches above grooves cut into stone, then drives forward at the signal. His feet strike the track. Dust rises behind him. The race is brief, but preparation has taken years. His home city may reward him with meals, money honors, or a prominent place at festivals. Poets compose verses. Sculptors create an ideal body bearing his name. Stories enlarge his strength until ordinary training sounds like the work of gods. Those who tell the tale never fully agree. Whether one champion truly carried a bull, outran a horse, or ate enough food for several households. Fame improves athletic records with remarkable generosity. The page shifts to a busy square. A philosopher stands beneath a plane tree, speaking to a ring of listeners. His cloak is simple. His feet are dusty. He asks questions that unsettle comfortable answers. Students follow him through the market, while shopkeepers observe that wisdom seldom purchases olives. Unlike the athlete, he offers no spectacle of speed. Unlike the actor, he wears no mask. His influence grows through conversation, argument, memory, and pupils who record what they believe he said. A second philosopher lectures in a painted hall. A third walks beneath a colonnade. Another teaches in a garden. Each gathers followers around a manner of living as much as ideas. One is remembered for restraint, another for sharp wit. One rejects luxury. Another insists that study leads toward tranquility. Their sandals, cloaks, diets, gestures, and tempers become almost as famous as their teachings. Brother Aldwin rubs his ink-stained thumb across his palm. He remarks that scholars are often remembered by students who simplify them. You see sayings passed from teacher to pupil, then copied onto scrolls. A difficult argument becomes a neat sentence. A complicated life becomes a useful example. Later generations place words into a philosopher's mouth because the words sound appropriate there. Fame polishes thought as fingers polish a coin. The scene drifts toward a harbor at sunset. A travelling storyteller sits near a fire while sailors mend rope and merchants eat coarse bread dipped in oil. He recites tales of voyages, monsters, clever queens, grieving fathers, and warriors longing for home. No one can quite agree whether the legendary singer exists as later listeners imagine him. The uncertainty does not weaken the tales, it gives them room to travel. The storyteller changes details for the audience before him. Sailors receive more storms, soldiers receive more battles. Homesick merchants receive longer scenes of return. Each performance preserves the story by altering it enough to live. The harbour grows quiet. Waves tap against hulls. A man wearing a pilgrim-like cloak listens from the circle's edge, though pilgrim roads belong to another age. The manuscript blends memory easily, laying Greek shore beside medieval road. You think of minstrels in smoky halls, saints' lives repeated beside abbey fires, and legends carried from market to market. A name survives when enough voices find reason to speak it again. Their influence reaches Rome, then monasteries, courts, schools, and the cold chamber where you stand. Empires change language, faith, and law, yet these figures remain through copied lines and retold scenes. The torch-bearing runner reaches the harbour wall. He lowers the flame toward a waiting lamp. One fire becomes another without diminishing the first. Then the Greek sea darkens beneath the page and new words appear above its final glimmer. Mortals cannot keep their breath, but they may teach another voice to carry it. The final words hover above the Greek sea until the torchlight sinks into the water. For one quiet moment, the flame seems lost beneath the dark surface. Then it rises again as a red sun, round and immense, lifting above a river wider and calmer than any road you have travelled. The manuscript carries you south. Blue water unrolls between green banks, date palms lean over irrigation channels, mud brick houses stand beyond fields of barley and flax. Fishermen push narrow boats from reeds. Farmers guide oxen through damp soil left by the retreating flood. Along the bank, women rinse linen while children chase one another beneath the cry of ibises. Beyond the fields, the land turns suddenly to gold. Desert reaches toward the horizon bare, and bright beneath the morning, tombs, temples, and stone pylons rise where fertile earth meets sand, as though the living world has built a doorway into eternity and decorated it so thoroughly that eternity cannot pretend not to notice. You stand upon the deck of a river boat. Its square sail fills with a mild north wind, while the current carries it southward. Sailors adjust ropes of papyrus fibre. A clerk sits beneath a linen shade counting baskets of grain upon a wooden tablet. Two geese complain from a wicker cage with the authority of minor officials. Brother Aldwin leans over the codex as the scent of wet stone gives way to river mud, incense warm reeds, and bread baking in clay ovens. The torn-eared dog sniffs a painted hound standing at the boat's prow, and for a breath the animals seem to notice one another across centuries. Ahead, a temple complex rises from the haze. Its outer walls carry figures larger than the workers passing beneath them. A pharaoh strides across the stone crown, tall upon his head, one arm lifted in victory. Enemies kneel below him in tidy rows. Gods stand beside him, offering symbols of life, dominion, and countless years. The real ruler may be old, ill-absent, or not yet born when the carving is completed. The stone ruler is always ready. You step onto the quay among priests, laborers, soldiers, merchants, and villagers bringing offerings. Broad stairs lead toward pylons painted in red, blue, green, yellow, and black. Flags snap above the entrance. Incense smoke drifts beneath the sun. A procession emerges from the gate. Priests carry a shrine upon their shoulders. Musicians shake metal rattles called sistra. Women sing. Officials walk in linen so white that you suspect an army of washers has been sacrificed to the cause. Ordinary spectators bow or raise their hands while the sacred image passes hidden inside its portable sanctuary. No one can quite agree how much common people see of the God within. The concealment is part of the power. What remains behind doors, curtains, incense, and priestly words can grow larger in the imagination than anything exposed to daylight. The pharaoh's image moves with the god. His name is spoken in prayers, his victories appear on walls, and his offerings are carved in endless repetition. The scene is not a record of one afternoon, but a statement about the order of the world. The ruler feeds the gods sustain Egypt. The river rises, the fields grow, the sun returns. Everything depends upon balance, and the pharaoh stands at the center, at least according to the people responsible for carving the walls. You pass beneath the pylons into a shadowed court. Columns rise around you, their capitals shaped like papyrus buds and open flowers. Painted stars cover the ceiling. Sandaled feet make soft sounds across stone worn by generations. A scribe sits near one wall with a reed pen tucked behind his ear. He grinds black and red pigment upon a palette. His fingers are stained. Beside him rests a basket containing bread, onions, dried fish, and a small jar of beer. The meal would not surprise a medieval laborer, though the climate is considerably kinder to the onions. The scribe copies royal titles onto fresh plaster. The king is called Strong Bull, chosen of the gods, lord of the two lands, master of appearances, and possessor of life. The titles accumulate like fur-lined cloaks in a northern wardrobe. Each one adds another layer between the mortal person and the public figure. An apprentice miscopies one sign. The master taps him lightly with the reed handle, smooths the plaster, and begins again. A royal name cannot be allowed to trip over its own bird. Hieroglyphs surround the king's image. Some show animals, tools, plants, body parts, waves, and stars. They are pictures, sounds, ideas, and sacred forms at once. To write the ruler's name is not merely to label him, it gives the name presence. Some swear that images and names possess a form of life when properly made and ritually awakened. A carved mouth may receive ceremony so that a statue can breathe, speak, eat offerings, and act as a dwelling for spirit. Even now, it is hard to tell how literally every participant understands such rites, but no one in the painted temple treats the statue as ordinary stone. A priest washes, burns incense, opens the sanctuary, and tends the divine image with clothing oil and food. Later, temple workers consume much of the offering. Divine meals, like noble banquets, develop practical arrangements for leftovers. The manuscript draws you deeper into the temple, where fewer people may enter. Light narrows. Oil lamps shine against gold leaf. Here the king's body is ideal: shoulders, broad waist, narrow stride, strong face, calm. Age rarely troubles him. Fatigue does not touch him. Mud never stains his sandals. You think of the emperor's marble face, polished free of sleeplessness. Egypt understands the same quiet truth. Long before Rome, the public image must be simpler, stronger, and more durable than the person. Yet Egyptian rulers do not all choose the same image. A queen appears wearing a tall crown and close-fitting gown. Her name is enclosed within a cartouche. On another wall she bears masculine regalia and the ceremonial beard of kingship. This is Hatshepsut, though the manuscript's letters shimmer before settling upon the name. You follow her image through terraces, chapels, obelisks, and reliefs. She presents herself as the rightful pharaoh, chosen by divine will, maintaining order through temples, trade, and prosperity. Her mortuary temple rises against pale cliffs. Reliefs show ships returning from Punt with incense trees, animals, and valuable goods. No one can quite agree on every detail of Punt's location, though the painted merchants seem confident that it lies wherever expensive cargo returns from. Hatshepsut's obelisks catch the sun. Their tips shine like captured daylight. Inscriptions praise her devotion, yet every towering stone also announces the ruler who commissions it. Piety and publicity stand comfortably upon the same foundation. The page darkens along one edge. Years after her death, some of Hatshepsut's names and images are damaged, covered, or replaced. Carved faces vanish beneath hammer blows. Cartouches are cut away. Those who tell the tale never fully agree why. Perhaps later rulers seek to restore a male line. Perhaps politics, inheritance, ritual order, and memory all play a part. The attempt to erase her has the opposite effect inside the manuscript. Every damaged space points toward what once stood there. Absence becomes a shape. A missing name demands recovery. Brother Aldwin touches the worn Roman coin near his hand. He remembers rulers whose faces are recut and whose names are removed. The monastery has scraped parchments too, where old writing waits beneath new prayers. Memory is rarely clean. It is layered, corrected, reused, and sometimes made more interesting by someone trying to destroy it. The Nile carries you onward to a workshop beside a royal tomb. Artisans live in a planned village near the desert cliffs. They receive grain, fish, vegetables, oil, beer, clothing, and tools as rations. Their houses contain stools, chests, pottery, sleeping platforms, and household shrines. Painters prepare walls, sculptors cut reliefs, scribes mark grids to guide proportions. A standing figure follows established measures with knees, shoulders, elbows, and hairline placed according to convention. The image does not capture a passing instant, it shows the body as it ought to remain. The head appears in profile, the eye faces forward, the shoulders face you, the legs turn sideways. To your medieval eye, the pose seems impossible until you understand that it gathers the clearest parts into one enduring whole. A profile is recognizable, a full eye remains watchful, broad shoulders retain strength, the tomb fills with servants, musicians, farmers, boats, birds, bread, beer, dried fish and folded linen. It is eternity arranged like a well-managed estate. Small servant figures, later called shabtis, stand among the burial goods. They carry tiny hoes or baskets and are meant to answer when work is required in the next world. A noble avoids agricultural duty after death by bringing a workforce of figurines. This may be the oldest attempt to delegate eternity. The manuscript leads you into the burial chamber. Painted stars cover the ceiling. The coffin bears an idealized face with outlined eyes and a composed mouth. Amulets rest among wrappings, scarabs, protective eyes, knots and small pillars. The heart receives special concern. It is understood as a center of thought, memory, and character. In judgment after death, it is weighed against the feather of truth and order. Spells seek to prevent the heart from testifying against its owner. You consider the usefulness of carrying a charm that asks your conscience to remain tactfully quiet. The dead person's name appears again and again on the coffin, on jars, on walls, on statues, within prayers. To speak the name helps preserve the person. To erase it threatens a second death. Image and word become anchors thrown into time. The manuscript shows pyramids under stars, their immense labor surveying, quarrying, and hauling, hidden within 4 simple faces. Later generations create legends because scale invites them. Some swear that secret chambers hold impossible knowledge, others imagine lost machines or hidden curses. Even now it is hard to tell why patient organization seems less believable than magic, except that magic requires fewer grain records. The codex gives you a quieter answer. Workers leave marks in hidden spaces. Crews possess names. Bakers feed laborers. Boatmen move stone. Officials count deliveries. Human hands build what later people struggle to imagine human hands building. Yet the pharaoh's name claims the whole. His monument aligns with sky, sun, and sacred landscape. A mortal life becomes architecture large enough to bully time. The scene shifts to another queen. A painted face with long eyes and a tall blue crown appears upon a sculptor's model. The name beneath it becomes Nefertiti. She stands beside Akhenaten beneath the rays of the Aten, the sun disk, whose hands extend toward the royal family. The images differ from earlier conventions. Bodies lengthen, faces become distinctive. The royal household holds children beneath the sun's rays. Whether the portraits show physical truth, artistic theology, deliberate symbolism, or some blend remains uncertain, yet the effect is clear. A different image announces a different order. Later rulers reverse much of it. Names are attacked, images are altered. The old gods return. Still, Nefertiti's face survives upon a painted bust in a sculptor's workshop, waiting through darkness for another age to make her famous again. You return to the temple at dusk. Torches burn beside columns. Priests close sanctuary doors. Workers sweep courtyards. A baker carries baskets toward storehouses. Geese settle near the river. The sun lowers behind desert cliffs, turning the pylons red. On the outer wall, the pharaoh lifts a mace above kneeling enemies. The pose is copied across centuries because it compresses a difficult message into one clear image. The king defeats disorder. The king protects the land. The king is always victorious. No rain delays him. No clerk loses a supply list. No chariot wheel breaks in mud. Public images are mercifully free from logistics. In the monastery chamber, the half-burned candle collapses into wax. Brother Aldwin lights another from the dying flame, passing fire from wick to wick as the Greek runner did beside the harbour. The dog turns toward the iron door. A shadow crosses beneath it. Someone stands upon the stair. A hand touches the latch but does not lift it. Brother Aldwin reaches for his keys. You hear his breath. The new candle throws long lines across the cedar box and the purple pages. Then, from within the Egyptian temple, a deep voice begins chanting a royal name. Again, again, again. The figure upon the temple wall turns its painted eye toward you. Gold letters form beneath the royal feet. Build the image in stone, bind the name to heaven, and time itself must labor to forget. The golden sentence beneath the pharaoh's feet dims as the unseen hand beyond the iron door withdraws. Brother Aldwin waits, listening, but the stare gives back only silence. The dog remains alert beside the cedar box. Then the painted temple wall loosens into curtains, lamps, couches, and a long dining chamber glowing with amber light. You enter an ancient banquet already in motion. Guests recline upon cushioned couches arranged around low tables. Their garments fall in careful folds. Rings flash when hands reach toward bowls of olives, dates, figs, and salted fish. Servants move between the couches, carrying trays, pouring watered wine, replacing dishes, and wiping spills before important eyes can notice them. The host lies where everyone can see him. His couch occupies the most honored position. Closest to him sit men whose favor matters. Others are placed according to rank, friendship, obligation, or usefulness. A guest may learn his true standing before the first cup is poured simply by seeing how far he must walk from the door. No one can quite agree whether the seating appears effortless. The steward has spent the afternoon moving cushions, reconsidering rivalries, and preventing two senators from reclining close enough to remember why they dislike each other. Ancient hospitality is warm provided it has been arranged with military precision. The first dishes arrive. Eggs, herbs, mushrooms and small pastries open the meal. Then come fish from distant waters, birds seasoned with pepper pork, glazed with honey and sauces rich with fermented fish. The ingredients advertise trade routes as clearly as any map. Fine wine speaks of vineyards, ships, warehouses, and money. A rare shellfish becomes proof that the host can command distance. You watch guests taste each dish while pretending not to calculate its cost. A man praises the mullet because its size suggests expense. Another guest eats everything with honest determination and is therefore considered provincial. Some swear that wealthy Romans serve fantastical mixtures merely to surprise their guests. Peacock, dormice, flamingo, and elaborate moulded dishes appear in later accounts, though it remains difficult to know how common such excess truly is. Satirists prefer unforgettable dinners, and ordinary lentils rarely earn immortal mockery. He wants a meal that will be repeated tomorrow. Servants bring silver vessels engraved with mythological scenes. A mixing bowl stands near the center where wine is diluted before serving. One guest quietly inspects the weight of a cup, judging whether it is solid silver or thin metal, pretending to possess ancestors. Tableware has its own voice. A chipped clay bowl says necessity. Imported glass says reach. Silver says wealth. Gold says that subtlety has left the room. Brother Aldwin glances at the monastery's plain wooden cup beside the candle. He looks almost proud of its humility, though you suspect he would not refuse better wine. The banquet deepens. Perfumed water is poured over hands. Guests wear garlands believed to cool the head, sweeten the air, or soften the effects of wine. Some swear that ivy prevents drunkenness because it belongs to Dionysus. Even now it is hard to tell whether the god protects drinkers or merely enjoys watching them test the claim. Musicians enter. A flute begins softly. A singer performs verses praising love spring victory and the generosity of the host. The final subject receives the warmest applause. Conversation shifts between politics, property, theatre, lawsuits, marriages, and rumors. Every story offers a chance to mention a connection. Another refers casually to a letter from a governor. A third pretends not to care about an appointment he has discussed throughout the evening. Influence reclines beside appetite. The host's household has prepared more than food. A philosopher may be invited to provide serious conversation after dessert. Exotic animals, unusual lamps, mechanical devices, or surprising table decorations can transform the dinner into a performance guests carry away in memory. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether one famous host truly trained dishes to descend from the ceiling. The story survives because every age understands the desire to make dinner more dramatic than necessary. The manuscript moves to another chamber, quieter and smaller. Here a provincial official receives merchants, local landowners, and military officers. The meal is less extravagant, yet the same rules operate. The best wine goes first to the most honored guests. Finer bread reaches one couch, while coarser loaves reach another. Portions reveal rank more plainly than speeches. You notice a servant hesitate before pouring. One guest receives an older vintage, another receives the house blend. The distinction is discreet but unmistakable. Medieval halls know the same language. At a lord's feast, seating near the high table carries honour. Trenchers' cups and portions differ. Musicians play beneath rafters blackened by smoke. A guest watches where the steward places him and understands more than any welcome speech admits. The manuscript briefly overlays both worlds. Roman couches become oak benches, silver bowls become wooden trenchers, garlands become sprigs of rosemary. Yet the glances remain identical. Who sits nearest power? Who receives the finest cup? Whose joke is repeated? Who leaves before dessert? The image returns to Rome as the final course arrives. Fruit nuts, honey cakes, and sweet wine. Slaves carry basins for washing hands. The host presents small gifts to selected guests, perhaps napkins, lamps, tokens, or objects linked to the evening's entertainment. A gift extends the banquet beyond its walls. The recipient carries home both object and obligation. By morning the city will be full of judgments. The fish was excellent, the singer was weak, the silver was genuine. The philosopher spoke too long, the governor sat closer to the host than expected. One merchant received a private word near the garden door. Reputation is plated, poured, seated, scented, and served. The banquet ends slowly. Guests call for sandals and cloaks. Servants lift lamps. Outside litters wait beneath the night sky. The host stands near the doorway, smiling with the controlled weariness of a man who has purchased tomorrow's gossip. As the final guest departs, the dining chamber darkens. Only one silver cup remains bright upon the page. Its polished surface reflects not the host, but the faces of everyone who watched him. Then new words gather around its rim. At a feast, power does not merely eat, it chooses who is seen eating beside it. The silver cup darkens, and the reflected faces ripple in silence. One mouth leans toward another. A hand shields a whisper. The banquet hall dissolves into baths, markets, shrines, barracks, and roadside inns, all joined by a thread no messenger can see. You hear the rumor before you know its subject. It begins beside a doorway where two servants gather abandoned cups. One claims the governor speaks privately with a merchant. The other adds that the merchant carries letters from Egypt. By the time a lamp boy repeats the story, the letters bear a royal seal, and the governor is preparing to flee. The manuscript carries you into a public bath the following morning. Steam drifts beneath the vaults. Sandals slap wet stone. Men scrape oil from their skin with curved strigils, while attendants carry towels. The baths are places of washing business and news, though cleanliness competes bravely with the number of bodies sharing the water. A lawyer mentions the governor's dinner. A merchant says the Egyptian visitor purchased 3 mules. An old veteran insists he saw armed men near the river gate. Another bather remembers no armed men, but agrees they looked suspicious. Some swear that steam loosens the tongue because heat drives secrets toward the mouth. Even now it is hard to tell whether anyone believes this, though the bathhouse provides evidence. By midday the rumour reaches the market. Vendors repeat it while weighing olives, cutting cloth, stacking bread, and arguing over fish. A woman buying onions hears that the governor has stolen public money. A potter learns that soldiers plan to arrest him. A perfume seller says the emperor has sent investigators. Every trade reshapes the story according to its fears. Money changers speak of hidden coins, grain sellers speak of shortages, sailors speak of escape by ship, bakers speak of flour prices because bakers connect almost any crisis to flour. People no longer say that one servant heard something. They say everyone knows. The phrase everyone knows is a bridge built from mist, yet crowds cross it daily. You follow the whisper toward a roadside shrine. Travellers leave oil flowers, coins, and clay offerings before a painted deity. A woman ties cloth to a branch against envy. Two mule drivers discuss the governor. One claims his cousin carries supplies to the palace. The other claims his brother drinks with a guard. Neither relative is present for examination. Those who tell the tale never fully agree whether sacred places slow gossip through reverence or accelerate it by gathering anxious people. This shrine favors speed. A priest asks an official whether unusual offerings arrived from the governor. The official asks a clerk whether records are complete. The clerk asks a porter whether sealed chests came at night. By sunset, sealed chests certainly came at night. The page turns toward military barracks. Soldiers mend straps, throw dice, and eat coarse bread with beans. A sentry reports that citizens seem restless. Another soldier says unrest begins when officials hide grain. A third remembers the governor's inspection and decides his expression looked guilty. You hear the tale move from bunk to bunk. It becomes shorter. The governor is corrupt. The governor will flee. The governor has betrayed Rome. Brother Aldwin shifts beside you in the monastery chamber. The second candle burns low. The dog rests one paw across the salt ring, spoiling whatever protection the monk hoped it provided. The manuscript carries you onto a road outside the city. Rain falls over rutted ground. A cart leans beside a broken wheel. Travellers gather at an inn before nightfall, hanging wet cloaks near a smoky hearth. The room smells of ale, damp hay, garlic, horse sweat, and pottage in a blackened pot. Rushes cover the floor. A pilgrim badge glints upon one hat. The innkeeper keeps an iron key at her belt and hears everything without appearing to listen. A merchant tells the governor's story over supper. He begins cautiously. By the second cup, caution grows bored. The governor now owns a secret ship. Egyptian treasure fills its hold. Foreign archers wait beyond the walls. A tax collector has vanished. The listeners lean closer, warmed by ale and danger located elsewhere. One traveller leaves before dawn. At the next town, the ship becomes a fleet. The archers become an army. The missing tax collector becomes a murdered senator, though he is sleeping badly in his own house. Roman roads carry dispatches, taxes, troops, and trade. They also carry stories. Merchants, soldiers, pilgrims, sailors, and craftsmen move between communities. News changes at every fire. A proclamation may take days to reach a province. A rumour may arrive sooner because it is entertaining enough to earn fresh horses. The manuscript shows the governor at last. He sits beneath shelves of tablets reading a report about unrest. One secretary advises a public appearance, another suggests an official denial. The governor chooses denial. By afternoon, notices announce that no money is missing, no ship is prepared, and no arrest is expected. The city concludes that all three must be true. No one can quite agree whether silence would serve him better. Silence permits imagination. Denial supplies details. Punishing gossipers may frighten some while convincing others that the rumor has touched a nerve. Reputation is soft clay in many hands. The governor walks through the forum to show calm. Supporters surround him. He greets merchants, speaks with veterans, and pauses at a shrine. Watchers study every gesture. When he adjusts his cloak, someone says he trembles. When he smiles, someone calls it desperate. When he leaves early, the city decides preparations are complete. Then another rumor arrives. A grain ship has entered the harbor. The governor arranged the delivery weeks ago, but the timing rescues him. Bread becomes cheaper. Market anger softens. The same mouths that accused him now praise his foresight. His reputation rises as quickly as it fell. Truth has not defeated rumor. A better story has replaced it. The page darkens. Whispering mouths remain visible in baths, stalls, shrines, barracks, and inns. They pass names from one to another until no speaker owns the tale. The dog beside you lifts its head. Ink gathers beneath the final faces. A messenger carries words along the road. A rumor persuades the road to carry itself. The final sentence on the page does not vanish. It stretches into a narrow road pale beneath rain, and the whispering mouths become travelers, moving westward with bundles, staffs, saddlebags, and damp cloaks. A merchant, a soldier, and a pilgrim carry different versions beside oil jars, scars, and a shell-shaped badge. None knows exactly where the tale began. The road lengthens through centuries. Roman milestones sink into weeds. Bridges lose their parapets. Villas become roofless shells where shepherds shelter from storms. Temples surrender columns to churches, manor houses, and lime kilns. Names carved in stone outlast the voices that once pronounced them correctly. You feel the manuscript draw you backward from the ancient road into the monastery chamber. Cold returns first. Then the smell of beeswax, damp wool, old vellum, and smoke caught in the rafters. The second candle has burned low. Brother Aldwin stands with one hand near his keys. The dog with the torn ear, watches the iron door, though whatever waited beyond it has become silent. A bell sounds above you. It is the same deep bell you heard before dawn, though night still grips the abbey. The sound passes through stone. Monks rise from narrow beds, pull habits over cold shoulders, and cross dark corridors toward prayer. Time here belongs to bells rather than clocks dividing darkness and daylight into sacred portions. Brother Aldwin closes the codex halfway. The Roman voices fade, yet painted faces remain visible between the leaves. Emperor, poet, athlete, queen, philosopher, charioteer, and unnamed shopkeeper wait beneath his hand. He says the old world does not survive by itself. It survives because someone copies it. The manuscript brightens again, but this time it shows the scriptorium above you. Dawn leaks through horn-covered windows. Ink-stained scribes sit at sloping desks beneath wool blankets draped around their shoulders. One warms stiff fingers around a clay cup. Another trims a quill with a small knife. A third bends so close to his page that his nose nearly enters the history of Rome. Rushes lie across the stone floor. Sand, pumice, inkhorns, rulers, awls, wax tablets, and thread crowd the desks. A brazier gives more smoke than heat. The monk's work anyway. You follow Brother Aldwin up the spiral stair. The dog follows you. The iron door closes behind your back with 3 heavy clicks. In the scriptorium, night office has left the benches empty, but the manuscript shows the room as it appears on an ordinary winter morning. A lector reads a Latin text aloud while several scribes copy from his voice. One writes the correct word, another writes a word that sounds similar. A third pauses because someone coughs during a sentence and later supplies what he thinks must have been said. A single cough crosses a kingdom. Brother Aldwin lifts a worn volume from a shelf. Its leather cover has been repaired with pale thread. The pages contain an ancient history copied 200 years after the fall of the author's city, then copied again in a monastery beside a river, then carried north in a bishop's chest. In one passage, a Roman general crosses the Alps. In another copy, Brother Aldwin says the same general crosses something called the White Mountains because a tired scribe does not recognize the older name. Later readers decide the White Mountains must be miraculous. One poet adds angels. A preacher adds a warning against pride. By the time the story reaches a smoky hall, the general has crossed a frozen wall, while demons throw stones from the peaks. No one can quite agree whether the first error comes from damaged ink, poor light, uncertain pronunciation, or simple exhaustion. Every explanation is possible in a room where a candle costs money, and winter afternoons end before the sentence does. The manuscript leads you along the desks. A young monk copies the life of Alexander the Great from a romance rather than a sober chronicle. He paints Alexander beneath a jeweled crown, dressed less like a Macedonian king and more like a lord from a neighboring county. His soldiers carry medieval shields. His palace possesses pointed towers. His enemies wear turbans imagined by someone who has never travelled farther than the abbey vineyard. The monk does not believe he is lying. He gives the ancient world shapes his readers understand. Alexander becomes a knightly conqueror, a seeker of wonders, a ruler who flies through the air in a basket carried by griffins and descends beneath the sea in a glass vessel. Some swear that he reaches the gates of paradise, others insist he meets speaking trees that foretell his death. Even now it is hard to tell how many listeners take every marvel literally. A tale may be useful without being believed in the same way that a grain account is believed. At the next desk, Julius Caesar appears in a fur-lined cloak. A scribe copies his campaigns, while a painter adds a miniature of Caesar, receiving tribute in a hall with oak doors and Gothic arches. The Roman leader's laurel crown remains, but the soldiers behind him resemble men who might ride through the monastery gate before supper. The ancient celebrity has been invited into the Middle Ages and given suitable clothing. Brother Aldwin turns another volume. Here Virgil is no longer only a poet, he becomes a magician. Stories claim he builds bronze statues that warn Rome of rebellion, constructs a fly that keeps other flies away from a city, or hangs a magical lamp that burns without oil. In one tale, he suffers humiliation at the hands of a clever woman and later repays the insult with an enchantment. Those who tell the tale never fully agree why Virgil gathers magic around his name. Perhaps medieval readers sense wisdom in his poetry and mistake learning for sorcery. Perhaps unfamiliar knowledge naturally acquires a cloak and a wand. Perhaps a famous name simply attracts wandering stories as a roadside inn attracts mud. You remember the Roman poet arranging his public persona beneath a portico. Now other centuries arrange it for him. The man who once praises patrons becomes an enchanter beneath monastery lamps. You cross into the library. Oak shelves stand behind iron grills. Books lie flat or rest in chests wrapped in cloth against damp. Several volumes are chained to desks, not because monks expect the books to escape, but because readers occasionally do. A librarian records loans upon a wax tablet. Each volume requires skin scraping, ruling ink, binding clasps, and months of labour. To lose a codex is to lose a small herd transformed into sentences. Some book curses threaten thieves with illness, excommunication, or worms that never die. Some swear that one curse condemns a thief to be cooked in a pan. Brother Aldwin says such language is excessive, then checks that you have returned the volume to its proper shelf. Medieval scholarship contains mercy, but library discipline has limits. The manuscript shows travelling scholars arriving at abbey gates. They bring letters of introduction, copied excerpts, damaged scrolls, and rumours of books held elsewhere. One carries a work of Cicero from a cathedral school. Another possesses fragments of Seneca. A third knows that a distant monastery has a copy of Livy, though no one can agree whether it contains the missing books or merely a catalogue entry written by an optimist. They compare readings. A missing line in one copy survives in another. A strange word is corrected through context. Marginal notes migrate into the main text. Explanations become sentences the ancient author never wrote. A monk marks a passage with a small pointing hand, its finger aimed toward a useful idea. Centuries later, another reader studies the hand more carefully than the idea. You see pages scraped and reused. Old writing remains beneath new prayers, pale as river weeds under ice. A Roman legal text becomes the foundation for a saint's life. A pagan speech lies under a list of feast days. Ink is expensive parchment, more so, and eternity often shares its page with household necessity. The Codex does not judge. It merely remembers both layers. Brother Aldwin leads you toward the far desk, where the suspicious novice from the guest house now sits in the manuscript's image. His pilgrim badge catches the candlelight. He copies a passage describing a Roman empress whose hairstyle influences the city. He pauses over the word for a Roman garment. He has never seen such clothing. In the margin he draws a woman wearing a long medieval gown, a veil, and a jewelled girdle. Behind her stands a servant holding a comb. The empress becomes almost a queen from your own age, though the curls remain strangely high. You think of the silver mirror. Powerful appearance survives even when the dress changes. At another table, a chronicler copies a story about a gladiator. He dislikes the arena and reshapes the fighter into a warning against worldly applause. A later storyteller hears the same name and transforms the gladiator into a brave captive who refuses a tyrant. Another painter gives him a saint's calm expression and removes the details that made his social position complicated. The crowd's favorite becomes a moral example. A charioteer becomes a reckless prince. A philosopher becomes a wise old hermit. A Roman matron becomes either a model of virtue or a warning against vanity, depending upon the sermon. Ancient lives pass through medieval needs. Monks preserve them because the stories teach rhetoric, grammar, history, morality, politics, or the unpredictability of fortune. They reject certain pagan beliefs while copying the sentences that contain them. They condemn vanity while illuminating crowns with shell gold. They warn against fame while ensuring famous names endure. Brother Aldwin smiles faintly at this. Contradiction, he says, is one of the Abbey's most reliable crops. The page carries you into a great hall far from the monastery. A minstrel stands before a fire while nobles eat pottage, roasted meat, coarse bread, and smoked fish from trenchers. Dogs wait beneath the tables, wet cloaks steam near the wall. The minstrel tells of Troy. Yet his Troy has crenellated towers, drawbridges, chapel bells, and knights riding beneath embroidered banners. Hector behaves like a feudal lord. Paris resembles a courtly lover. Achilles becomes a warrior whose armor might have been made by a guild in a nearby town. The listeners do not complain. Ancient fame becomes useful because it feels near. The fall of Troy warns lords about pride, loyalty, desire, and divided counsel. Alexander teaches ambition. Caesar teaches conquest and betrayal. Cleopatra becomes enchantress, queen, lover, threat, or marvel according to the teller. Philosophers become voices of wisdom that can be quoted beside saints when the quotation behaves itself. You watch stories migrate from Latin into French, English, German, Italian, and other tongues. Each translation changes rhythm, emphasis, and image. A clerk selects one word because the exact ancient term has no easy twin. A poet adds a scene to please a patron. A preacher removes a scene that pleases people for the wrong reason. The old figures become new creations without ceasing to be old. The manuscript darkens toward evening. Back in the scriptorium, a monk sprinkles sand over fresh ink. Another closes shutters against rain. The bell calls them to supper. Bowls of beans and pottage wait in the refectory with ale bread and perhaps a little cheese. One scribe remains behind to finish a line. His hand aches. His eyes burn. He copies the final words of a Roman historian and adds a prayer asking future readers to remember the copyist. His own name is not preserved, yet the famous Roman survives because this unnamed hand refuses to stop. You stand beside him as the candle gutters. A drop of wax lands near the margin. The scribe mutters, scrapes it away, and continues. Outside, winter wind presses against the shutters. Somewhere in the yard, a cartwheel breaks with a crack, followed by language unsuitable for a monastery. The dog beside you lifts its head, at the sound remembering perhaps the road that brought Brother Aldwin into your life. Then the codex upon the desk begins to change. The Roman faces you have followed appear around its borders, but now each wears two forms at once. The emperor bears both laurel and medieval crown. The poet holds both scroll and magician's staff. The athlete wears a wreath above a knightly cloak. The Egyptian queen stands beneath Gothic arches. The Greek philosopher sits beside a roadside shrine. They are preserved. They are misunderstood. They are remade. And because they are remade, they remain alive enough to be argued over. The suspicious novice looks up from his work. For the first time, he stares directly toward you through the painted page. His lips move. Brother Aldwin does not seem to hear him. The novice lifts one ink-stained finger toward the iron door beneath the scriptorium floor. Then new words gather across the lower margin. Memory does not carry the dead unchanged. It dresses them for the road ahead. The sentence glows while the painted novice points toward the iron door. Brother Aldwin sees the gesture at last. He lifts the codex, and beneath its cedar scent you hear the soft turn of a key beyond the stair. The locks open one by one. The iron door moves inward. The suspicious novice stands there holding a lantern in one hand and the monastery's least convincing relic in the other, a small bone wrapped in red silk, said to belong to Saint Clement, though no one can quite agree which. Saint Clement, which bone, or why it smells faintly of smoked fish. He confesses that he followed you. He also confesses that the abbot has noticed the library keeper a guest and a strange dog vanishing beneath the scriptorium after Compline. Brother Aldwin receives this news with the expression of a man who has survived ancient magic only to be defeated by monastery administration. The novice sets the relic beside the salt ring. Nothing happens. Some swear that holy bones glow near cursed books. This one remains stubbornly bone-coloured. The Codex turns its pages without a hand. Rome. Greece and Egypt pass before you in quiet fragments. The silver-haired patron greets his clients. The imperial face travels upon a coin. A noblewoman lifts her perfumed wrist. Gladiators and charioteers hear their names rise from the crowd. Poets sharpen praise and insult. Pharaohs stand larger than life beneath painted stars. Then the figures begin to fade. Graffiti loses its letters. Shop signs peel from walls. Banquet lamps dim. Rumours thin into breath. Marble noses break, gold leaf flakes away, a scribe's ink pales until only the pressure of his quill remains upon the vellum. You understand that influence has always depended upon repetition. A face must be shown again, a name must be spoken again, a story must find another listener before the fire dies. Yet nothing is repeated forever. The Roman arranger of attention appears at the edge of the forum. He no longer looks polished. Dust lies upon his cloak, and the crowd passes without seeing him. He studies the people once gathered around his gestures, then turns toward you. Behind him stand emperors, queens, athletes, merchants, philosophers, actors, and unnamed writers. Their public images differ from their private lives. Some shape their own reputations. Others lose control of them. Later generations polish, condemn, misunderstand, and remake them. The Roman raises one hand in farewell. The manuscript closes quietly. The chamber becomes still. Brother Aldwin wraps the codex in linen and returns it to the cedar box. He removes the salt, including the part scattered by the dog, and locks the bronze clasps. The novice carries the unreliable relic upstairs. You suspect it will return to a chapel shelf and continue disappointing pilgrims. You climb the spiral stair behind him. In the scriptorium, dawn presses grey light against the shutters. A clerk sleeps with his cheek beside a wax tablet. Quills wait in their horn cups. The half-burned candle from earlier has gone cold, leaving a crooked tower of wax. Outside frost whitens the courtyard. The broken cartwheel near the stable has been propped against a wall awaiting a carpenter. Your horse breathes mist beneath a wool covering. The torn-eared dog follows you into the guest house and circles 3 times upon the rushes before lying beside the hearth. You sit upon a bench while a lay brother brings warm ale, coarse bread, and pottage. Smoke rests beneath the soot-black rafters. Wet wool steams near the fire. Above you, monastery bells greet the morning. Their sound carries over the wall, across frozen fields, along muddy roads, and toward villages where no one knows what passed beneath the abbey during the night. You warm your hands. The ancient faces remain behind the iron door, but their echoes travel with you. Rome discovers that attention can be arranged, purchased, painted, carved, stamped, dressed, performed, whispered, and served at dinner. Greece gives fame a stage, a stadium, a school, and a storyteller's fire. Egypt binds names to stone and raises images toward the sun. Medieval scribes receive them all, dress them for another age, and pass them onward. You listen as the last bell fades. No one can quite agree whether fame defeats death or merely delays the silence. For now the question rests beside the dying hearth, warm enough to hold and quiet enough to leave unanswered. The fire settles lower, and you no longer need to follow any road. Your boots rest near the stones, their mud drying slowly in the warmth. The dog sleeps with one paw stretched toward the ashes. Outside, the frost lies pale upon the monastery roofs, and the river moves beneath its veil of mist without hurry. You hear small sounds that ask nothing of you. A coal folding inward, a horse shifting in straw, a wooden beam answering the cold, and the distant bell releasing one final note into the morning air. The faces from the manuscript grow softer in memory. The emperor sets down his laurel. The poet closes his scroll. The charioteer loosens the reins. The queen removes the last pearl from her hair. Shopkeepers lower their signs. Scribes clean their pens. Priests close painted doors. Crowds become quiet streets beneath a gentle sky. You may let them go. Their stories do not need your attention now. They have travelled far enough for one night across these deserts, forums, theatres, temples, abbeys, and roads shining with rain. They settle like dust upon a closed book, safe behind iron and oak. The hearth gives one dim breath of light. Your shoulders loosen beneath the fur-lined cloak. Your hands are warm. The bench beneath you feels steadier, and the wool blanket waiting nearby seems softer than it did before dawn. Nothing follows you from the chamber below. Nothing waits beyond the gate except a pale road and a quiet day that need not begin yet. So you remain beside the fading fire, listening to the monastery breathe, while stone vellum, smoke, and winter darkness become still around you. The night carries its questions away, leaving only warmth, breath, and the promise of sleep. You are safe here. You may rest.